Well then.
Right.
All right, Andreas, take it away. Yeah. Well, it's a good thing we've got the whole cast here so that we could talk about, you know, anime
Whatever.
like we're supposed to. I went and watched a whole freaking season of anime, 60 episodes. Then nobody wants to show up to talk about it.
I mean, I do want to talk about it, but I did forget to do the homework.
Oh, man.
And yeah, and so I was just like, so I had this issue of working too much again, and so I lost track of what day is what. And then it's
Mm.
like, oh shit, it's too late. I might as well watch other anime anyway and just do it all next week.
Right. So it was convenient that three of our people called in dead, and you were like,
Extremely
you know,
convenient.
yeah,
And it's not even my fault that we're not
right.
doing it.
Yeah. No, that it's funny because it's like, I was starting to get shaky vibes, woke up sick, family obligation. And I'm like, well, that's like an 80% mix for we're doing a no topic and the director and I are just going to talk at each other. So
Yeah.
if this is your favorite kind of podcasting, you've got a treat in store. Bad news for everybody else, though, that the topics from this week are pretty much crap. So we're going to have to come up with something else. So unless we want to get canceled and cheese off a bunch of people that are actually,
we can continue
in charge
talking
now.
that games are terribly written. Veilguard is recent, right? We can piss on that.
Have you played or watched somebody play that in your life?
I have watched some reviews and I have seen people be extremely salty.
Yeah. I mean, that's everything. It's not been as bad as I expected. It hasn't been like every game magazine has come out and just panned it. And that's about what I'd expect for most new games, right? It's going to be a mixed bag, but yeah.
So my issues with Veilguard is, okay, I love Dragon Age Origins.
Okay.
They have not done a game like that since Origins, or at least I haven't tried. Sure. I got frustrated with Dragon Age 2, so I quit it halfway through, and I didn't never pick up Inquisition.
Sure.
So there's a lot of things in the story that I might not know. I don't understand a lot of the things that are supposed to be going on. Like, I don't know who Solas is as a character.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they're trying to do with the Qunari. But it's just not the same type of thing that I like. So I want to get my bias out there really upfront. But some of the issues with Veilguard is how the games journalists are saying it's 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. It's so good about all these things when it's just really, really, really bad writing.
Sure.
And so then everybody else says, like, no, this was not entertaining. This was not good. This isn't the thing that the story should have been. And then those are being called every form of bigotry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I have you and at least one other friend, ironically, also a girl. So it's just like I don't have one of my dude bros that I can lean on and say, hey, why do you like this and why is it great and whatever. But that notwithstanding, it's like, I've had, good people that I like suggest these games, but I just cannot get into Origins and haven't taken it past there. And I'm so far behind the game. It's like, I hate to jump into another game midway through. And so I had asked her straight up and I was like, do I need to play all of these? Like, is there tell me that Origins has a Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic moment, right? If you know, and it's like, tell me that there's something worth hanging on for, that's like,
if you're thinking of the specific moment that, okay, I've never played Knights of the Old Republic, but that game has a similar feel to Origins. It doesn't exactly have the same kind of particular moment because that one is very particular, but it just like the game has its own like darknesses and also like the adventures that you're doing. It has real puzzles. It has real like feeling of weight and costs.
Right.
And the atmosphere of the world, I think, was really well done.
So it's more like general writing is good rather than, single story beat moments and stuff like that. So I get you.
Knights of the Old Republic was written by, I think, like Chris Avallone and the type, and I really do like his writing. David Gator, who did Origins, they're not the same type of writer, but they're just good.
But I could see where Origins would be your cup of tea because decisions matter, and stuff like that. Yes. And I don't remember if I was telling this crew or, my other friend, but like what was ironic for me, and not that this impacted my enjoyment of the game at all, but I think it's worth sharing, is that I decided to play a mage, which is kind of a big oof, if you know the world, and then decided to play an elf, which is also an oof. So it's like I'm a third class citizen, because it's like, nobody likes me. They don't like my profession or my race, but I'm also kind of the savior. And so it's kind of funny, going through some of that role playing, and like they'll let you know that they're looking down on you, but it doesn't really, stop you from doing anything important, or the most part. You just have to like deal with that initial, you an elf, a mage, from like everybody, and the paladins are like, you fucking twitch, dude, and I swear to God, I'll put you down so hard.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun, right?
You should be used to this, like in real life, right?
Right. Yeah, is a ginger, and a white
and
male,
a white man.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Please. I've had conversations where I'm the enemy, right? So it's like I get it. It's like, I'm sorry I was born this way, but I was born without my consent. So there's only so much
or
I
pigment.
can do.
How dare you?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so sorry, our one viewer in the chat here, but
there's two. It's one of them is called the Dresden Files podcast. They must be new to this channel.
Those guys are losers, though. I mean, that man is a loser.
I was gonna say, I heard there's at least one third class citizen among them. No, I'm sorry, two.
Right? Yeah. And actually, that's fair. I'm like a fourth class citizen because I think my elf is also a ginger. So I do like to put a little bit of myself into my characters sometimes. So I think he's a redheaded elf wizard. It just was a non-starter, and so luckily they got me the black sheep of my order to be my my mentor, and then a wild witch that's like, I probably have seen my mother actually eat people, but let's go save the world. So
I mean, the characters are so much fun in Origins. I think they're so well written. Like Alistair and Morgan are great. I think they bicker at each other all the time. They are polar opposites in a way of like, she's so like kill everyone in death, and he's like happy go lucky, like, hey, these socks are dry, isn't that great?
Right. Well, yeah, his is happy go lucky but still cynical, though, right?
Yes,
it's like he has to know how bad it is to make it as light as he tries.
Well, I don't even think you've gotten to one of the reveals. Like, I just like
probably
play the
not
game. You don't like turn down
it's
the difficulty if you want to speed through it, but just get through the story.
Okay, maybe I don't think, like, I'm a dad gamer, so I don't go for the whole thing, but I might have it on a middle setting somewhere, because I also, like, I'm a gamer, so I do like to have a little bit of pride in my work and everything like that. But yeah, I'll see if bumping it down will help, because my last gaming session was just kind of like, I could be watching old reruns. Holy crap, we went from 2 to 4 all of a sudden. So, but welcome. See, I told you they were dead. He's now a zombie, so
Yeah, but it's no topic. So what's the point?
Yeah, well, we can talk about
as we covered, my lack of doing homework is not the problem here.
Right. Yeah. We're 10 minutes down the wrong road now. So
it's your lack of not getting us all a studio in a location where we could all meet up in person.
Yes, that's a thing. Yeah. So speaking of which, I'm going to be on the south part of the East Coast. That's close enough to meet up, right? So, just kidding.
Are you taking the kids to Disney?
Not that south. So
because you've been there before.
I'll be in the Union, so it's a little bit more north than that.
So North Carolina.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, part of the joke has been, but I'll be in the good one. So we'll be, north of that line. So, anyway, that if anybody didn't pick up on the subtlety of that joke, it's the fact that our country is vast, right? So, it's like, even if I come to the entire other side of the country is not near enough. Like, same friend who is big into Dragon Age and everything like that. She actually lives in North Carolina, but she's still 2.5 hours away. And so it's like, I mean,
you could come to my state and still be 10 hours away if you go up.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, it's crazy, but
I don't recommend. Well, it's really no different than going to North Carolina.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to like one of the cities in North Carolina.
It is condensed enough. North Carolina probably is about 10 hours away, but so is North New York, New York State. So,
how long would it take to get? It would probably be at least a 10-hour drive from here to North Carolina, depending on traffic, obviously. But
right,
I can get to Maryland in 3.5 hours.
I was going to say 8 of those hours is driving through Maryland, right? So,
well, it would be going through. So 8 hours 50 minutes, so 9 hours without traffic. I could get to North Carolina.
Yeah.
It's not terrible. I'm not going to do it, but
it's a fun thought experiment anyway.
Well, sometimes sure. I like to. I mean, because I've driven to Florida before. I've driven to. What's the furthest I've driven? The furthest I've gotten is Iowa, and a car ride. Not one single car ride. That one took a couple days, but
right. I mean, we did the whole. Yeah, we did the week long from Florida to Salt Lake. So that's my longest drive, But we regularly do Salt Lake to Reno, which is still, like a 9-hour drive. And so I've got a couple of British buddies and just trying to conceptualize for them. It's like if I drove from the southern coast of your island country all the way up to Scotland, that's the distance. And we do that like yearly at a minimum. Usually. I don't think we did this year, but we did last year, and so, anyway, welcome to No Topics. I'm just going to ramble. So if we want to talk about bad writing again,
then it looks like 13 hours, I think, was my longest road because I went from here to Savannah, Georgia, which was not all the way to Florida, but that's where we were headed. So Chicago was second. That took 12.5 hours, or at least according to the map, It probably took longer because, traffic. But that again was a 2-day trip because that was when I was going to Iowa.
Sounds good. Sorry, I'm passing our messages from our fan over to Andreas, so he can feel the shame of his lack of presence. So,
I mean, he's from Finland. He doesn't have shame, so there's really no point.
But shouldn't he? So
should he? Yes, him of all people absolutely should.
I'm not having an argument as a third wheel for this, Andreas. So he's popping off in Discord. So if you'd like to see how many,
he's healthy enough to do that, but he's not healthy enough to show up for work.
I wouldn't want him to he can text and vomit at the same time or whatever he's doing. He doesn't.
He could just sit there and look pale and sickly like he always does. We wouldn't know.
He could get in the chat.
He already looks like he has no sun and a vitamin deficiency. How is this any different?
Maybe we figured a problem out here. Maybe he would be less sick if he didn't have a vitamin deficiency.
Well, yes, that's how that works. Thank you, Doctor.
I was going to say,
we'll call you Dr. Alex now instead of Director.
Based on Icelandic import laws, he probably can't get vitamins. So he's stuck with what they have there, which is snow and nothing.
Pay us $1 or $2. Join Discord and see all of his complaints.
He's really popping off. So it's great right now. So and then because we're talking about titles and it's funny, and it'll cheese off the director making a Marvel reference. I've got like the whole Doctor Strange in my head, like, oh, it's Doctor actually. Okay, Doctor Director. No, it's Strange. Yes. So
maybe
that was a fun moment.
That was a good line.
I did actually see that movie in part because Dan Harmon was doing something of the writing of it, and that was a Dan Harmon moment. I did enjoy it.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Right.
Yeah, the first Doctor Strange is fine. It's nothing great, but it's fine. The second one's terrible.
Bad writing? We're going back to bad writing?
We don't have to. Sure. I'm just saying, but he brought it up, so
let's do it. Let's talk about all the reasons why Marvel writing is bad, right? Because because it's too quippy. So this is one of our 3 forbidden topics on top of the 3 forbidden topics of like religion, politics, and taxes. So, let's do it.
Are taxes forbidden, or is it just that none of us do them ourselves?
Well, since I'm not Wesley Snipes, then I totally do my taxes. So.
No, I mean, like, so you don't have someone doing it for you. You do it.
No, I have somebody do it for me.
That's what I'm saying. So it's not a forbidden topic so much as it is just a topic where it's shunted off to somebody else.
It's one of those things that we don't talk about because we just don't understand it.
Listen,
that hasn't stopped us for a lot of things. We're podcasters, so we don't do a lot of writing, but boy, are we here to tell you how bad yours is. So,
well, it depends. Does writing in your free time count? Because just because it's not published doesn't mean anything. Yeah. Besides, people have common sense. If you see someone doing something stupid in the road, you know what it is. All right, people. I have common sense.
Yeah.
Okay. You have eyeballs. You can assess things visually and interpret things of what's going on around you, and you can say that story is trash and that person is an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, digression, but topical is, there was an article I read probably through The Guardian or something like that had a link to a study about how common sense is. And so they had a survey put together for is this actually common sense? And like, it was an opinion piece. So the person was like, yeah, I don't have as much common sense as I would have figured. So maybe you don't either. And I came out at like 90 something percent, I don't remember, 93 on the low end, 97 on the high end. I think there was like one question I missed. And I was like, okay, so I was like, yeah, okay, I'm probably okay. But that makes me a little worried about everybody else who scored less than that. So
I have so many cynical questions about so this was like just a series of questions that you have to get right. How are they structured? How are they asked? What were they based around? What do they mean common? Do you know what this factoid is? Or do you know
white male Western culture? So, common sense. I mean, what do you want?
Doesn't bother me none.
Yeah.
That's because I'm superior to you because I'm not a ginger.
Sure. Yeah. You got it. No, but that's kind of what's funny, right? Is like, I think that's part of what the study is like people feel like they've got good common sense, but then you just kind of break it down and, common sense isn't that common. So.
Yeah, but that's how everybody rolls these days. Well, I should say these days. It's how it's always been. People run on vibes and how they feel. It's very little based on intellect.
Right.
And even the smart people do that. So, what are you going to do? It's like when you your first instinct when somebody else does the wrong thing in traffic and they cut you off and you honk at them and they flip you off. It's like they know they're wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
But the instant reaction is fuck you.
Yeah. Right. Yep. You're right.
How dare you point out my inadequacy?
I'm the asshole. So
yes. Oh, it's just I almost want to divert my entire route to follow that person home every time that happens.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of getting canceled and stuff like that, like we're not supposed to quote this comedian anymore, but it's one of my favorite bits for that sort of thing. He's got a bit about how, people drive like it's their favorite thing to be an idiot on the road. And so you've got somebody on the far right lane going slow, and then he cuts you off 3 lanes to get in the left lane to turn. And he holds up his hands and he's like, I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. It was my favorit thing. So like,
what was I supposed to do? Drive correctly?
Yeah, right. Like, was I supposed to plan?
Talk about lack of common sense. The amount of people that get licenses. Holy shit.
Yep.
And it was funny because I failed my driver's test the first time. It was on, I made the mistake and it was something I probably should have failed for. But, you would think based on the amount of people who fail, at least the first time, that there wouldn't be as many drivers on the road that don't know what they're doing.
See, the thing, just because you fail a license test doesn't mean that anyone is actually going to stop you from getting in a car.
Well, no, there is that.
A variety of things for that, but yeah. We haven't even gotten to the one that really got me, which was you go to Florida and they have silver alerts because there are so many old people there that will just like wander off because they've got dementia or whatever. But you know what they also still have?
Cars?
Their driver's license. And it's like, how are you gonna have this entire system in place? Like I'm super American. All right. Like I'm absolutely, let's do freedom and stuff like that. But I also am a big fan of,
Justice.
Kids and people being able to walk on the streets without having to worry about if they're going to get run down by a motor, like a car or something. And just like,
that's just how you teach reflexes. I mean,
right.
No, I see a silver alert every once in a while here too. And that's fun. And it always tickles me when I see one, because I'm like, an old person.
Yeah, it's more widespread than I realized, but the first time I had seen it was when we moved to Florida a few years ago, and I was like, "Oh, this is a thing here because Florida has retirees." Like not all, so wet retirees, moist retirees, they go to Florida. Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant it. But the dry ones, they go to Arizona, right? So, if you don't like moist, just plan on moving to Arizona. So
in Arizona, you can keep your driver's license for 50 years.
Like it doesn't expire until after 50 years. That's
insane.
I
don't know if it changes once you get to an older age, but when you get your driver's license at let's say 16, you don't have to renew your driver's license until you're 66.
Sure. Yeah, but Arizona makes some sense to me, because apart from 2 cities, the rest of it's just a desert wasteland. So
sure. Yeah.
There's nobody. What are you going to do? Hit a cactus? Big fuck. That's your problem.
Yeah. And I'd like to clarify for the pedants that are listening to us, possibly one of the three, but like I'm totally a fan of you proving your competence, right? Like if we say like, hey, after a certain age, once you hit 55, 60, whatever, you've got to take your test every year or something like that. If you're mentally fit, right? That's a sliding scale. Like not every person's got the same, genetics and problem and whatever, but yeah, like just the fact that it's like, no, you can keep it because you passed a test when you were a teenager. I was like, what you have in common with that teenager? Basically nothing. Like literally nothing.
Listen, you have some people have not evolved their brains past that point, so they need to be tested at like 20, 25, 28.
But ship of Theseus rules, you're literally not even biologically the same person as that kid. I'm just saying.
That's not true.
That's
just none of your medical pedantry.
Maybe
you have the same brain as when you were a child.
Isn't it 17 years and all the cells are replaced in your body?
I mean, thought it was literally 7, but
maybe it's 7.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as bad as it's not as bad as if you became a fairy queen, right? But
if you became a fairy queen, you instantly become a good driver because you have a driver.
Sure. I just mean you'd also not be biologically the same person. So.
I was going to say, not to go to a forbidden topic on today's topic, but we see that scene in Changes where the Fae is driving like the guy who drives the night bus in Harry Potter, but he's doing it very well because he's got supernatural reflexes.
Right. And I mean, at least that bus wasn't being driven by the head, so you still had to have
just 100-year-old man with goggles bigger than the telescope.
Did he run over that lady with the carriage, or did he stop like
that time
6 inches away?
That's just what we were allowed to see. You don't know what the night bus is covering up.
Why is it red?
How do you think that head got to be there? That's not an ornament. That's just something that got stuck from his last victim and has shriveled up over the years.
Yeah, the night bus is the modern version of a red cap. The bus is red because of all the people it smeared. Mm-hmm. So,
well, plus it's a double-decker bus in London. I mean.
Let's not bring cultural relevance into this. So, yeah, those. Oh,
I just meant there's plenty of opportunity to hit people.
Those other buses were inspired by the original night bus, and it was spelled with a K back in the day. So,
and it was a knight riding around on
like a wagon. So, yeah, with what's those invisible horses that you can only see because you've seen people dead.
The Thestrals.
Yeah, there you go. See. So, all right. See, this is no topic. This is what you get. It is all digression.
Not complaining.
So you come in.
I know Harry Potter. I know Harry Potter pretty well. That was my first. Yeah. That was my pre-Dresden thing. That was what I used to be obsessed with once upon a time.
You're one of them. You grew up, and then
yes,
you got the
I did.
Adult Harry.
I was right at that cusp where America first discovered Harry Potter, right around the time where I was in 5th grade, I think.
Yeah.
And so then that became the thing through junior high and high school.
That makes sense. Yeah, I was going to say I must have a couple years on you because I was in 9th grade when I really started to like kind of understand that there was a cultural phenomenon in this Harry Potter stuff, and a big part of that realization was I was the teacher's aide for the middle school library, because I lucked out on that somehow. And basically every kid would come in, do you have the Harry Potter books? What? No, get out of here. What's wrong with you? So now they do, but at the time it was like, dude, we don't have anything that's been published in the last 10-20 years. Get out of here. So
no, to this day those were the only books we ever actually went to like midnight releases to go get them.
That's part of why I don't like it, though. It's like, because if I didn't tell that story while I'm running around at midnight at Walmart being a degenerate trying to buy food and stuff like that, we would see the release parties of people lined up around the block, and you've got 80-year-old grandpa there with his 4-year-old granddaughter, and it's like, what possible thing could you guys have in common that you're here at Walmart at freaking midnight lined up to get a book, and yeah, that just all piled on.
They're both awake and they both have to use the bathroom at that hour, so it's fine.
Right. And so they thought no better way than to stand in line for 5 hours to get this book while
they're unemployed. The parents are asleep, so grandpa takes the toddler.
Yeah, I don't.
He's got his pension and she's got her not allowance yet.
Yeah, because obligatory. I'm just going to say Murica. That's why. So,
well, I mean, to be fair, the first person who ever gave me a Harry Potter book was my grandfather. Like he just happened to see it on, I think, the New York Times bestseller list at the time, and he was like, "Oh, you're a reader. Maybe you'll like this. Here you go."
Yeah, sorry,
he didn't go to any of the midnight releases though. That I always went with like my father and all that stuff, because they would inevitably come out on a time when it was his weekend, and we would just go on a Friday night when it was releasing.
Sure.
Him, me, my sister, stepbrother, stepmother. And
well, that was the other thing. Didn't they release on like Tuesdays, or was that a later convention?
I think some of them probably did, but I think most of the time they released on a Fridays just because of the target demographic. You'd have the time to go wait.
Sure. Yeah.
But, I just remember that because I remember I think it was the last book specifically was on a Friday, and then I just stayed up all night reading it.
Right. Well, and that might have been a thing they moved later. It might have started out like the earlier mid books. That was a million years ago, but yeah.
And that was the first time I ever did one of those pre-internet trolling things, because the next weekend, I think it was, we were going into the city to go to the Bodies exhibit because it was in South Street Seaport at the time. And we're going and we go through the exhibit, and I'm just like, whatever. I'm 13, 14. I don't really care. I'm just there. And at the end, they have the guest books where you can sign how your experiences were. There were like 6 of them. So at the front page of every single book, I wrote Harry Potter dies in the last book. Front page of all of them. And then sat on the side watching as people opened the book and got so angry.
That's insane that worked. That's funny. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was funny because while it was true, it wasn't the whole truth. So I rationalized that to myself as being like, yeah, I'm not the worst person ever. Even though
sure.
But years later, of course, and you're walking into something like Endgame, and then you got kids screaming outside, Tony Stark dies. And it's like,
right.
Yep, I was that kid.
Yeah.
Just not like that.
Right. Yeah. Fun. Director, you're being summoned in the chat. Just thought you should know. So,
so because we want to argue about Rings of Power.
Topic, why not?
That's a bait.
Yeah, I see bait.
That's very clearly a bait comment.
I still haven't watched season 2.
Don't.
And
you don't need to.
Chat on it before.
Yeah.
It's not. Good bait is not obvious bait.
I was going to say, isn't the to stick slightly tangentially to Lord of the Rings, isn't the animated movie coming out in like this month, or is it next month? The War
is that what War of the Rohirrim is animated? Like
yeah.
I know I'm in the minority here a little bit, but like why bother? So
I'm interested enough to check it out, but I'm not like excited for it.
But like, I was really hoping that we'd have a whole bunch of like, chicks pretending to be dudes on horses again, so.
I don't have a problem with animated. I say it's a weeb, but it just like the what is this story? I haven't looked into it in any way. Is it a real story? Is it somebody else trying to like, I'm going to add to the Tolkien universe?
Because no, it's this one I think is genuine, quote unquote. It's like 100 years before the Battle of Helm's Deep. It's I think it's based around the king is Helm Hammerhand, the one they reference in the movie. So I think it's whatever siege or something that happens at that time.
Oh, okay. So it's the World War Battle of Helm's Deep 1,
something like that.
Yeah. And so my reference. Why
would they insist on getting the same actors back when it's not the same people?
Well, they're just voice actors in this case. So I guess it's a matter of.
Well, they're related, so they therefore sound the same.
Well, how many of them are the same? Like, I know they're repurposing some Christopher Lee lines that were cut from the movies so that they could have Saruman's voice in it. Which is better than AI, but
yeah.
I don't know who else they repurposed for lines. Like, because I know in the upcoming Gollum movie, there was talk of just recasting everyone, which, I mean, if you're going to make that stupid movie, you might as well recast the same people if they're interested.
Sure.
Like, is it Bernard Hill? Is he doing Helm Hammerhand? Is that what it is?
So Brian Cox is Helm Hammerhand.
Okay.
And yeah, they've got Miranda Otto as Eowyn.
Yeah, she's the narrator, right? Eowyn's
that's what I was going to say. Like, I was like, I know nothing about this other than it's coming and it's animated and what we've discussed here. But I bet you she tells the kids this story while they're in the cave or whatever is going to be the narrative setup, and that makes sense why they brought her back.
Because I was like, I remember she was being the narrator for it. I was like, okay, that's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
And that makes sense as a thrust.
As a frame story, that's not too bad. I just like, if it's animated, if it's not the same people, then why did they bring back Miranda Otto as whoever, Eowyn or not? Just whatever. Okay.
And she's the only one that I recognize, like
I was going to say, unless she's voicing the main.
Yeah, some of these guys might have been extras or something, but they weren't like main cast. She's the only main cast that's listed. There's not even a, Christopher Lee archive footage type of, credit. So we'll see. But yeah, that makes a bit more sense then, a little bit. And, sure, I'm on board with it. Like I said, I was going to see it. I'm just like, I wanted to see Charge. I want to see death. I want to see a red sun. And all of that stuff. And since you missed it earlier, the whole like chicks pretending to be dudes riding horses is the fact that they couldn't get enough male extras to mount the horses. So they had to hire a bunch of, local women to stand in for the Rohirrim.
It's not just extras. It's people who know how to ride horses, and dressage is more popular than like just random cowboys.
Well, in New Zealand, especially, like they got horses for the sheep. Like what?
They did something like that for the Uruk-hai too. I think it was because there were only so many tall people they could use, so they got a bunch of short people and called them Uruk-loos.
Oh, sure, that sounds a little.
And just like put them on platforms or whatever it was. I don't remember exactly how it was, but I thought that was amusing when I heard that the first time.
That is funny.
But I mean, a lot of that is also, it's like in the opening battle, it's a bunch of people and it's a bunch of CGI. But obviously it's far better integrated than something like in the Hobbit movies where they all look like they're just CGI renders.
Sure. I just had this flash of like, you've got to have scale for the Uruk-hai, right? So you've got, your mini Legolas, your mini, Aragorn and everything like that, and so you basically got kids brawling it out because they couldn't find enough normal actors to fill it. So the Battle of Pelennor Fields is like children. So like, yeah. See, this
blast.
Listen, they won that fight for a reason,
right? Yeah. Mostly Eowyn killed the Witch King. That's why. So, but.
I mean,
incredible assist.
So. Don't get me wrong. That helps a lot, but like an undead army coming in to sweep over the battlefield is pretty much what sealed that.
Yeah, no,
because there's still 100,000 orcs otherwise.
Right. Yeah, and Gondor's walls had been breached by then. So, but yeah, I mean, it was definitely not looking good, but it was kind of simultaneous, right? The Witch King basically gets taken out, so they get the morale tanked, and then the nightmare comes, pretty much. So, but yeah.
Well, see, if he had exploded in the same way Sauron does and like created a bunch of craters to swallow up the orcs as they're running away, that would be a lot more handy.
That's how you can tell he's just a punk, right? Because he didn't
because he's got a lesser ring of power. He's nothing.
Yeah,
he's useless.
Yep, punk.
What a chump.
Yeah.
But
so anyway,
I don't think there's anything else coming. I mean, Arcane starts this weekend, so I'm hyped about that. But
did I see a headline? They got canceled too. So is this like the end? And then I don't know.
No. I think this was. I think they were only doing they're going to do other stories or whatever, but like this main story this is the completion of it.
Gotcha.
As far as I know. I mean, I don't know anything about League of Legends apart from what I know from Arcane, but it's a gigantic world that they can do a bunch of shit in.
Sure.
And it's got all that magic stuff that people like for some reason. I wouldn't know. It's not like I help co-host a podcast on a magic series or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And obsess with all sorts of tinfoil about how it works and what's required. And
yeah.
I don't think it's tinfoil anymore. I think it's aluminum foil. Like it's graduated to the actual name.
Okay.
It's a science.
Sure.
We could talk about sports if you want.
No.
No, it's football's tomorrow.
I can still name some of the teams who's playing. So,
and hold on. Which sport do you know the least about out of the three? No, I'm not counting hockey because I don't count
out
those.
Of the three. I mean, which are the three?
So football, baseball, and basketball.
Oh, and basketball.
Football and basketball and hockey are the ones going on right now.
Baseball's always been my worst. Like I never got into baseball. Like I've watched games and it can be somewhat enjoyable to watch, but I could probably name 3 teams confidently, and four. I wanted to go as high as 5. I wouldn't go higher than 5. Let's put it that way. Basketball, I could do better, but it's been so long that I basically know nothing about hardly any of the players, right? They're all literally dead or retired from my childhood. And then football, like I know some of the players that I knew are around, but they're now the commentators or they're coaching teams. So football I probably know the most about, but still it's been like a decade or more since I've watched it regularly.
So you're not going to the new Utah hockey games? They just got a team.
Oh, yeah. I'm aware that's a thing that's happened, and I'm aware that they're going to like buy up the mall or a chunk of the mall to like put their training facility in and stuff like that. But
apparently it's a very nice arena.
Yeah, it's all very weird. Well, like which one? The Maverick Center? Because that one's been around forever. But it's supposedly not big enough for the new team, so they're going to get their own thing. But like,
I can believe that.
I don't know what the leagues are like in hockey, even. But I've been to games. But it's like the Grizzlies play at the Maverick Center, and it's like a less professional league, like a semi-pro or something like that. I don't know. So,
you mean in Memphis?
However that works. Let's see.
Because Utah has the Jazz, not the Grizzlies.
No, the Grizzly hockey team. So
so that's I guess a minor league.
I'm in here talking to me about sports and not being able to be on my level. All right, EG.
Utah's hockey is called the Utah Hockey Club. They just got them from Arizona. That's the NHL team.
Yeah, that's the NHL team. But we've had
nobody cares about minor league hockey.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't even care about NHL hockey.
Yeah. So,
although I like hockey live, like going to a hockey game is fun. Watching it is terrible, but going to a live hockey game is enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, there's an energy about being around a bunch of other people that have largely turned their brains off and stuff like that, right? So
I wouldn't go that far. I've been in traffic every day of my life.
Yeah. So,
but that's like, I mean, like I don't get that same. I enjoy that energy in a hockey game more. Maybe it's because it's indoors, but like a football game, if I'm not watching my team, I don't give a shit if I'm there live. Sure. I can enjoy a baseball game even if I'm not watching the Yankees, for example. But
right,
that's for me. I like baseball because I'm weird.
Yeah, for me, I just try to get slightly into the technical side because I just care if there's a good play. Like I'm so divorced from like the quasi nationalism of rooting for your own team and whatever that I'm just like, yeah, okay, great. The 49ers are my team because my parents rooted for them as much as anything. And that's great. I love to see them go to the Super Bowl and then choke, stuff like that. So it's like I can keep up with a couple of jokes. Don't ask me who their quarterback is this year or anything like that. And I just like to be like, yeah, it's like, yeah, I don't know who it was last year either. So good ploy.
His name is Brock Purdy.
Yeah, like I think the last one that I could name was Kaepernick, right? So it's been that long.
And you said it wrong, so it's even better.
Great. See, so yes, that's I have completely outed myself. Yeah. So yeah. I like to watch them do plays, and the 49ers still like to try and sneak the ball because Steve Young did it and that worked out for him. So let's keep doing the QB sneak.
Some of the vintage stuff it works occasionally. You can't do it if you're Peyton Manning and you got no legs, but
right, 55 concussions can't be wrong. So like
it's a 56. It's like Joe DiMaggio's hit streak. Once you get to that,
yeah,
then it's when
he was just trying to get as many concussions as the number on his jersey. I know that's not right too, but it's funny. So, but yeah, because he was like 18, I think, and
he was
shit. What was his predecessor's name? Because he was like one of the dudes, which is why everybody was like, oh man.
Oh, you're talking about way back in the day?
Yeah, like number 7 was his jersey, but I can't remember his name of all the crazy random trivia. So
well, I know the other really great Colts quarterback was Johnny Unitas, but
no,
I think he was 19.
Holy crap.
Are you talking about John Elway? Because he wore number 7, but he played for the Broncos.
Yeah, I don't think it was Elway. Yeah, because he's the wrong
white quarterback.
So,
which is all of them.
I feel like nowadays Elway is mostly known for his restaurant.
Well, luckily, Wikipedia has a list of all the quarterbacks ever
who wore number 7.
Joe Montana. So
yeah, for the Niners, he wore 16.
Yeah. What? Okay, he's got different numbers here.
Well, he did play for Kansas City for a minute, and I think he was 19 for them.
Well, there's like a 16, a 9, a 15. So
I don't usually tell you if you hover over it. Sometimes it'll tell you which it was. Because I just remember Joe Montana played for the Kansas City for the last 2 years of his career.
Sure.
They should have won the Super Bowl, but instead the Bills went and lost and choked every fucking time they went.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what's funny about the Niners, right? It's like there's so many Super Bowls that they should have won that they just choked on. That it's like, what? How?
Well, it's because they no longer have Montana or Steve Young to win them.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even when Kaepernick. So even when he went, right, it's like that year that they had the power outage, right, and all the jokes became that it was like he was playing so bad he went and threw a wrench in the generators or something, because
they were winning at that point, and then Baltimore came back. It was so the power outage helped Baltimore.
Yeah, that's right. So I don't know. Anyway, sports. Who cares? It's. At least if you're rooting for orcs and elves, one of them is probably the good guy and the other one's the bad guy, right? But with sports, it's like
as long as you're rooting against the team that plays in Massachusetts, that's always the bad guy. So you're fine in that respect too.
And we don't root against the Cubs because that's punching down, or
No, they've won a I'm sorry, they've won a World Series in the last 100 years now, so you can
right. So we can rag on them again. Okay.
The White Sox are the pathetic team in that town at the moment.
Yeah. Orcs, they also have babies and stuff, so that makes them basically humans, right? So
yeah,
that means that they have normal human values of don't be violent.
Listen, they just want a home where they can live in peace and eat people.
Yeah, my morality is pretty simple, right? It's cannibals, orcs, all that stuff. If you eat people, you're the bad guy. And so, when he says, we'll dine on man flesh, that pretty much solidly put him in my bad guy circle. So, he can have babies. That's fine. They can have art and culture and stuff like that. But, we've kind of crossed over to this being a whole like war of survival instead of a war for resources or values at that point, so if they don't want to eat the end of a lance from the Rohirrim, then they could just go back to Mordor. So no problems.
Or they could dodge.
Right. Not many of those though. So
you don't want to get speared, reflexes.
That one guy with the gimpy arm and the one eye and everything, he can dodge. But other than that,
if you can dodge a stone pillar, you can dodge a ball.
Right. Yeah.
Orcs playing dodgeball would be kind of fun to watch.
They would get aggressive with it, some of them.
There's
that guy who was jumping around doing drop kicks when he gets thrown from Cirith Ungol when they're fighting over the Mithril shirt. And he's just hopping around trying to fight for his life. Like, that guy would be a great dodgeball player.
There's a fantasy Warhammer game called Blood Bowl, which you play fantasy Warhammer factions football. I don't know anything about football, but that game does sound fun.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those.
I would know more about fantasy Warhammer than I would about actual football teams. So just
right. If we go down that route, my dad would do comics about the Federation and the Klingon playing hockey together and how that would go, because you can imagine, and stuff like that. But it's like, you're gonna skate on swords. We're in,
Yeah.
So, and it's like orc dodgeball. Like, tell me there are spikes on the ball.
Right.
So it's just like, oh, he's out and go to the hospital. So
you have a bunch of goblins going up against a bunch of treants that just like, how tall and how different can it be, and like who's going to throw the ball, and what bodies of goblins are going to be attached to it that's going through. That's like, let's get ridiculous, and I can actually start participating again.
Sure. Fair enough. He's just trying so hard in the chat to troll. It's adorable,
Yeah.
Which is what you want to be called when you're a troll. Like, aw, he's trying. Like,
listen, he's the one guy watching us. He might as well get some.
Yeah. Not, I mean, yeah, not to get canceled for yet another thing, but it's like some of my D&D buddies, we started doing a game night, and we played one of the War of the Ring board games. I forget the name, but it's like Risk, Lord of the Rings, but not literally Risk, but something adjacent to that. And my oldest friend and I got stuck playing the bad guys, and so I was Isengard. And my buddy was Sauron. We were just talking about how misunderstood he was, and Sauron did nothing wrong like the entire game, so our buddies were really starting to question it. It's like, we got to do this, right? They've got the whole like Empire did nothing wrong movement, it's like, we got to just do this whole, so whatever you're talking about, we said it, we got it. So, except for the babies, we didn't go down the bit like, orcs have babies too, look how adorable his little tusks are, so. But yeah, and then it's a good thing it was a friendly game, because the other main thing I remember out of that is that I think it's the Rohirrim player has a card that basically is like, if you play this card, Saruman dies, and it's just like no can defense. And it has a leadership mechanic that it's like, if your leader is on the board, your troops get buffs, and basically without your leader, your troops are basically worthless, right? Which is pretty Lord of the Rings anyway. And so he played that card. It was pretty late in the game, but it's like, man, if we weren't just screwing around, I'd be pretty annoyed by this right now. So Just one of those cheesy things. It's like, it's a good thing we're such good friends. So, yeah, we've played Diplomacy together multiple times and are still friends. So that's got to say something about the friendship. But really, Diplomacy is one of those games that it's like, if you don't like, if you want there to be a murder at your board game night for reals, you play Diplomacy. So people get real upset about that game. It ends friendships. So. Are you trying? Like, that's the most like classic role reversal. Like, but what if the good guy was the bad guy, or vice versa? Yeah. It's like, yes. I mean, really, Aragorn is an imperialist threat from the far west, right? Like, nobody knows who the F this guy is. He just shows up with a sword and claims to be king. And
yeah, the fact that he has like the mandate of heaven to be able to summon up ghosts and everything is just like, yeah, that's nothing.
Strange elves lying in Rivendell distributing swords is a basis for a system of government.
Apparently, right? Like, he doesn't have the mandate from heaven. He just happens to have the sword that, they've been.
He's got the mandate from heaven adjacent people.
Right. So, yeah, it does kind of bypass the whole thing in the books where it's like literally up until the Battle of Pelennor Fields and afterwards he did not want to be king, and then they were like, you're the king now, right? You're just going to storm Gondor. And he's like, what? And start another war? The hell with that. So he sat outside his own city for a week. But yeah, no, it is fun to like, underrepresent some facts and stuff at times.
He's outside his own city and then was seen healing people from the thing that people cannot be healed from because of his magical mandate from heaven, King of Gondor powers. And people were like, oh my God, you are the savior. And then they chose to have him. He did not just steamroll into it. He let them see that he was actually valuable.
Right. Let's not worry about facts. I was told I wasn't going to be fact checked. Okay. So, I'm saying he's an imperialist threat from the failed nation of Numenor, and he's racist against orcs and stuff. So, speaking of Maze Use, not at all. So, terrible digression. Did you get it?
Yeah, I don't know what it was. For some reason, the settings work now.
Well, did you reboot it? Because that's what it was.
Many times. I gave up.
So now we can have 8 minutes of detailed Full Metal Alchemist discussion.
That's got to be worth like 4 episodes, right? So,
we just talk about
depends on who's doing it.
Let's just talk about the clip episode, and then we can do the rest next time, right?
I was going to say you wanted to get that out of the way anyway, so go for it.
Nope.
That stupid filler episode nobody likes.
You know what?
I didn't hate it.
You know what?
I thought it was
for a clip show, it was interesting. That was it. There's about 4 minutes of content.
I was going to say you need 7 more minutes. So
whatever, guys.
fill it up. Give us your real.
We could watch the new stuff in the remaining time 3 or 4 times.
I disagree with that. I might be mixing a little bit about the dwarf in the jar into all that stuff, but like I feel like there is. Yeah, I know, but yeah, I'm just saying like that episode I thought was, like there's a chunk, right? It's like, you got to see young Panako and, that's the most screen time you get with Hohenheim up to that point.
Right. Yeah.
So
Hohenheim talking to Hohenheim, berating him for himself.
Right. I mean, who doesn't do that? So, yeah. And when you've been around for, thousands of years, oops, spoilers, you'll develop your conscience isn't just I know I should do better. Your conscience is like, look here, you little shit. We've been doing this a long time.
Was it his conscience or was it a memory of the dwarf in the flask?
I am being glib. I took it more as a memory or, again, maybe just like a shard or something like that. So
yeah, like an amalgamation of them all, really. Just yeah, considering it was basically he was having a dream, it could be a little bit of memory of the dwarf in the flask. It could be his conscience. It could be absolutely everything that's wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I was really hoping it was a real interaction with Pinako. Like that, seeing her as the young Pinako, I was
Sure.
like, wow, that's so fun. But then she started talking about, don't you remember your kids? Like, oh,
right.
man.
Well,
I was hoping it was like just a deep flashback clip show or something. Like,
I mean,
then you could have
take
some
it as that it's a mixture of memories and flashbacks, that she probably did say a lot of those same things at bonfire parties like that in the past. Like, you do get to see Trisha as a young kid and then like growing older in his eyes. And so it's mixture of memory and dream.
Okay. And look, I know we were just trolling and everything, but semi-seriously here, that's groomer bullshit and kind of gross, right? So just saying, like,
nah, I'll disagree with that.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. We're okay with like immortal beings like knowing children since they were children and then growing up to marry them, as long as they were.
Child grew up and was no longer a child and knew what he was and it chose him anyway.
That's why it's called grooming. So
well, only if it was,
he was pushing her away.
Yeah, that's true.
They love a bad boy who's playing hard to get, so it was all part of the long game. So
I think even after 1,000 years, he's socially awkward, and he's socially awkward because he's thousands of years old, and she's an adult by the time anything happens.
Yeah, sure. He was extremely socially awkward. He is not charming. Like, no, he is awkward.
I say that's probably. I'd say if anything, she's the groomer because it's part of the point that he has no connection with humanity, and then she actually sees him for who he is, and still kind of grounds him in reality. And it's kind of what's weird. Okay, isn't it weird that what keeps Hohenheim, what kind of brings back Hohenheim to try to work his magic, and what Ed does at the very end, both involve just settling down and having a family. And that's what kind of takes them out of this world of Sturm and Drang and magic and alchemy. They kind of get respite by raising kids. That's what Ed and Winry do at the end, right?
Yeah. Did the author have kids? Because I got to say that's not how my life went. So
I have no idea. So Hohenheim deciding to care about things and look into things, and we'll get to more of that. Like, maybe there's some form of change in him by having a family, but at the end. Of Ed and Winry, he basically says, let's get married. And then he goes off on another adventure with Alphonse. It's just like he had a happy life. That's not the same thing as settling down.
They go different places, actually, though. Like, they go on separate adventures, right?
Yeah, but he's still going just because he's like coming back to Resenbull and stuff. It's not, he did not stop doing the things that he's always done.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, I would agree with you up to the point that Trisha knew him and everything like that. Hohenheim was not charming. He must have done something, obviously, right? But, you know, he was such a better character when he came into his own, you know, when he was dealing with father / you know, the dwarf and everything like that. And just be like, he's being himself, you know, which is really like all the advice you need for that, right? Just be authentic.
But basically, I think with Hohenheim, I guess we'll get to when we get to the best episode of the series, which is not even this next episode, because the Dwarf and the Flask, that flashback is the best. Oh, it's the best. It's just the best. But he's a slave, and he's basically a slave even after he's made into a Philosopher's Stone, even after he's freed. He's just a traumatized slave. Then he kind of stops being traumatized and is just kind of deadened to the world, and that's the one thing that kind of gives him some kind of personality, and I guess people would say agency, or at least a sense that there's something he can possibly do besides weekly atoning for the sins of the dwarf and his compliance with that, bit by bit. Like, he knows all of the souls he burns up by name before he uses the power.
Sure.
It's kind of a humanizing thing, but he's just so introspective, and is it Trisha kind of brings him out of that?
Mm-hmm. We were not meant to be talking about FMA today, despite all the fact that we were planning on it, because I did not do the homework, and so
we can talk about whatever we want. Well, go watch the clip show so that you can tell Maze Hughes how wrong he is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, like, it was confusing for me at first, right? Because it's like you just kind of get dropped into this thing, you're trying to piece it together. The same thing. Like I was like, oh, we're doing history, we're doing backstory, whatever, until she says the thing about his kids, and I'm like, that can't be right. But I don't remember it being. Maybe I should actually go rewatch it myself too, to see your perspective, because it's like, there definitely were things, but I also felt like there was new stuff for it. So
there was some, like, there were. I mean, even if it's all introspective inside Hohenheim's head, it's still new things about him. And some new things that we haven't seen before from his perspective.
Right. Yeah. Is that the first time that we see him basically going around, like, in the wilds and doing whatever he's doing, sampling or countering their thing, right? Or is that a later episode? Because there's one with him like running around, like kind of in the woods, and then like in a meadow or something like that. He's just like literally in the middle of nowhere, but he's doing some alchemy nerd shit. So but
I don't remember. We see that at different points. It might be at the end of this. He's leaving seeds of where he's going to bump the elbow of gigantic things later.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that one's a pretty big spoiler. Otherwise, I'd get into more detail, but I think you know where I'm at with it. So so anyway, even saying the meme I was going to say is a spoiler. So, but
what was the meme?
Well,
or is it
I'll tell you in a minute. So, but yeah, next week I'll have done my homework that I totally haven't started on, but I'm about to have 12 hours worth of airplane ride to figure that out. And
that's perfect.
Yeah. And then we'll do FMA in 2 weeks, like we should have done this week. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I'll actually do the homework again this time.
Sure.
Man, I was up at 4. I was up at 6 in the morning. That's right.
Would you have preferred
the last episode and a half
that we did actually talk about FMA, and then you weren't able to join because of whatever issues you have with your webcam or something? Like,
it's just weird.
You were saved by everyone else failing.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. I know Andreas has got to stop licking doorknobs, man. Like seriously. So, or his roommates if they're bringing that home. So,
but why is he licking his roommates?
I was going to expand on that, but then it was worse actually. So let's just roll credits and So,
all right. If you would like to see Andreas' many complaints being annoying this in Discord while he was not present, you can pay us a couple bucks and join Discord and insult him there with us. And next week is Death Masks Part 3, I think.
I think so, yeah.
And then we'll come back to FMA. Maybe we'll finish that anime before the end of the year, but I'm kind of doubting it.
Ooh, yeah, it's getting pretty close. So
yeah,
we should be able to.
I hope so.